Now we have amongst us Shri Kapil Sibal ji, former Union Cabinet Minister, Honorable Member of Parliament Rajya Sabha, and Senior Advocate Supreme Court of India, delivering his keynote speech on managing contradictions in democracy.
I extend a heartfelt, warm welcome to Honorable Shri Kapil Sibal Sahab. It's a great privilege to receive him here, a man, a luminary from the legal side, a politician par excellence, an orator of distinct, somebody who needs no introduction in this country. He's been very kind to accept our invitation. He's always been very kind to me. I personally thank him on behalf of the Progressive Council. Sir, thank you very much कि आप आए, आपने हमें अपना वक्त दिया. I request everybody to please be seated so that we can begin with the session straight away. And so we'll start with the session straight away. I invite Shri Kapil Sibal Sahab for a keynote address on managing contradictions in democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, Shri Kapil Sibal Sahab for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abhishek, for giving me this opportunity to be with you all. It's damn difficult managing contradictions between a lawyer and a politician anyway. You've seen the fiasco that happens. You appear for the state of West Bengal and somebody's saying that, the Congress party is objecting. It's very difficult to manage your professional duties with your political commitment. And managing democracy is even more difficult. What I'm going to do today Welcome. Thank you very much, Akhileshji, and I'm delighted that you are here because I'm going to throw up some very, very difficult issues which are confronting the nation as we talk today. Well, let me start globally in the context of India, and let me talk about the global economy and the contradictions that we have to manage as we take our democracy forward. As you all know that the population of nations, especially in the context of Europe, are on the decline. That's not true of the United States of America. The population is somewhat static. But by and large, there's a decline in the global population. If you look at Japan, it's on decline. Look at Europe, it's on decline. So there are not enough hands to do jobs in this part of the world, that part of the world. And therefore, naturally, if they have to be competitive in the global economy, because the maximum expenditure for any business enterprise is salaries, pensions, and all kinds of benefits that have to be given out when you do business. So if you reduce your manpower and you rely on technology, then what happens is that you become more competitive in the world. And therefore, technology is at the heart of the development agenda in all of Europe and, in fact, all of the world, the Western world, Japan as well. And now we are moving into another level of the technological revolution, which is robotics. In other words, even where manpower is needed, if you're able to absorb robotics into the technology and reduce that element of human endeavor as well, what you then do is actually bring to almost a very low level the cost of your enterprise. And if you do that, you're able to sell your product at a much lower price than those who actually use hands for manufacture of products. So therefore, the global economy is moving towards, has absorbed technology and is moving towards robotics in order to be more competitive in the rest of the world. As far as the Indian economy is concerned, when we have got 1.3 billion people, almost 1.3 billion people, We can't afford to absorb technology. We can't afford to go to robotics, except in very niche areas of our manufacturing activity, which deals with satellites and DRDO and defense establishments and the aircraft industry and stuff like that, automobile sector also. So we have a contradiction facing us in the context of our development agenda. We willy-nilly have to absorb technology because that's the way the world economy is moving. And at the same time, we can't afford it. Because what do we do with our leather industry, where our maximum jobs are in that industry? What do we do with textiles, maximum jobs in that industry? What do you do with the agricultural sector? 60%, 70% of our population, 60% is involved in agriculture. There's no possibility of using technology except to a very limited extent. So there's an inherent contradiction in the forward movement of India in the development agenda and the global development agenda. And the question that I ask myself and the question I ask of our government is, have you ever given any thought to this? How will we manage this contradiction? Do you have a national agenda for managing this contradiction? It's not even part of our thought processes as I talk to you today. So that's the global conundrum that I place before you today, which I think needs to be addressed very seriously if we are really to be part of the development agenda. Now let's talk of education. I'll come nearer home, come to the state of UP. You had recently in Banaras Hindu University the aspirational women who were told that you have to switch off your mobile phones at 10 o'clock in the evening, who were told that after 8 o'clock you cannot move out. Now, here's a great contradiction. That's a contradiction between a paternalist university system and aspirational India. And you know that basically, if you look at really the world and you look at wealth, the wealth in the world is not owned by companies who have physical assets anymore. The richest of companies own no assets at all, whether it's Amazon or it's Uber or it's any company you see. The richest companies own no assets. So if the richest companies own no assets, then intellectual property is the heart of the wealth agenda of the global community. And intellectual property is created in the university system. In fact, if you look at numbers, you will find that there is something called in education the gross enrollment ratio. We call it the GER. The gross enrollment ratio is the ratio of the number of people who actually get into class 12 and then pass out of class 12 and go into the university system. And in the development world, the gross enrollment ratio is about 55 to every 100 students who pass out of class 12. And in 2009, when I was the HRD minister, our gross enrollment ratio was 12.4%. In other words, out of every 100 students who passed out of university, out of class 12, only 12.4% went into university. And of course, as you know, and Chief Minister here, Akhilesh ji would know, that lots of people actually don't reach class 12. So there are lots of dropouts before class 12, and of those who reached class 12, only 12.4% in 2009 went into the university system. Whereas in the developed world, it's 55%. Therefore, you will see that your gross enrollment ratio is directly related to wealth creation. Because wealth creation is at the university level, not at the school level. That's where intellectual property is created. That's why industry comes and picks up IP and then sort of transforms it into goods and services after going through procedures. So if your aspirational India is told that you cannot go out of college at 8 o'clock, and your aspirational India is told that you cannot use your mobile phone at 8 o'clock, there's an inherent contradiction there. How do you take your country forward if a paternalistic culture doesn't understand what aspirational India wants? And I see that happening around the world. I see that happening in India, more particularly. See what's happening in our university system. See what's happening in JNU today. In Jawaharlal Nehru University, they are told now all research students will have compulsory attendance of 75%. If you do not attend your classes, and these are research students, you will not be able to sit for the examination. Now, where in the world are research students supposed to attend classes? At 75%. So the result is that you are actually, there is a paternalistic my-baap culture that is forcing its agenda on aspirational India, and that's a contradiction that will have to be resolved if you want aspirational India to move forward. That's the second thought that I wanted to put before you. The third thought that I want to put before you, because many of these contradictions are irreconcilable. Some of them are manageable. Some of them are irreconcilable. Let's come nearer home to my own profession, because there's a lot of talk about master of the roster today. And let's talk about that. Now, what is the rule of law? The rule of law is meting out justice in accordance with procedures established by law. That's what rule of law is all about. Now, the Chief Justice of India says that I am the master of the roster. Or we believe he is the master of the roster. After all, he's the Chief Justice of India. We can't deny him that right, that he is the master of the roster. But that doesn't mean that he is above law. That also does not mean that he functions without any established procedures. That also doesn't mean that he can post a case to whichever bench whenever he likes, whatever case he likes. That doesn't mean that. So what is good for the rest of India is also good for him. Now, how do you reconcile that contradiction? You reconcile that contradiction to say, and for all of us to say, we accept you as the master of the roster, but please, master, have some processes put in place so that nobody suspects that you deny the very principle, the essence of which the Supreme Court of India stands for. That's all. That's all that we people want. Now, we see recently what has happened, and these are contradictions that can be managed. See what happened recently. 2 names were sent up to the government for elevation to the Supreme Court. And the government decided to pick one name and reject the other. First of all, the collegium made a recommendation on the 10th of January, 2018. That recommendation was on the file of the government. They did not take any action till there was, as you know, and I don't want to repeat all that happened within the court system. So when this matter came to a stage where it had to be dealt with, then at that stage the government sends back the file and holds one name, and a distinguished advocate belonging to my profession is elevated to the judge, and we are delighted about it because it's made history. For the first time, a woman advocate has been elevated to the Supreme Court, and we are proud of it. But what has it done to the system? What it has done to the system is established a precedent. And the precedent is that we will decide who to elevate and who not to elevate. Let's sort of look at it from a long-term standpoint. Supposing in Uttar Pradesh, the Chief Minister, the collegium recommends 35 names. Goes to the Law Minister, he looks at those names and he cuts out 10 names. and he sends back the file and says, okay, now of the 35 names, I cut out 10 names, I excise 10 names, you give oath of office to the others. The result will be that all those who the government does not like will be excluded, and all those who the government finds are okay for them will be included. What will be the result of that? The result of that will be that all advocates will curry favor with the government so that their names are included. Now, this completely is destructive of the system, and this can easily be managed. All that needs to be said is, to the government, you don't like 10 names, you first send the 10 names to us that you don't like. Because of the 25 names that you like, we have no problems. Of the 10 names you don't like, you send it to us. That's the collegium. If the collegium again recommends those 10 names, then under the law, the government has no right to refuse. The result is that the 25 names will be accepted, or of the 10 names, 1 or 2, where the collegium itself agrees with the government, will be excluded. So there'll be no problems at all. But nobody wants to manage this contradiction. The government doesn't want it, and somebody sitting there also doesn't want it. That's a real problem for the country. Now, let us look at another issue. This is a contradiction that cannot be resolved. That's the contradiction between the Hindutva agenda and the development agenda. It's a contradiction that cannot be resolved at all. Why do I say that? The Hindutva agenda wants a majoritarian culture to be accepted by all citizens of this country. Love jihad, ghar wapsi, control over the university system, targeting people, encounters as we are seeing them today, creating dissensions within society. Now, if you do that, the end result is that you won't have peace and tranquility. The end result would be that you won't have the necessary groundswell equanimity for the development agenda to move on. Now, you know that any development agenda, and I remember our dear Prime Minister, when he was not the Prime Minister, said that you gave Congress 60 years, give me 60 months, and I will show you what I can do for this country. And just the other day he made a statement that nobody can do anything in 5 years. Nobody can do anything in 60 months. Because any development agenda to be taken forward needs a gestation period. And it will take you years and years really to show progress. Now, you know that you cannot succeed on the front of the development agenda. You know that the only way to succeed is to put forward your Hindutva agenda. So, I remember, and this is very interesting, that Hindutva agenda started from day one. And I remember that when the Prime Minister went to Parliament, he placed his forehead on the floor of Parliament and he said that, look, iski maryada, मैं हमेशा ध्यान में रखते हुए आगे बढ़ूंगा. And the first speech he made in Parliament, first speech that he made in Parliament on the motion of address of thanks to the address of the President, he said, he took 3 names. He said there are 3 heroes in Indian history. One is Mahatma Gandhi, one is Ram Manohar Lohiya, and the third one is Deen Dayal Upadhyaya. And he excluded Jawaharlal Nehru's name. Now, while he talked about Parliament being the temple of laws, he started his travel in the political, as a Prime Minister of India, with politics and divisive politics. Now, we know that divisive politics is not going to take this country anywhere, which is why our GDP is where it is, which is why we have jobless growth in this country, which is why scams are taking place in this country, which is why there is no capital in this country. And these are very serious issues. And therefore, as we move forward towards 2019, we see the Hindutva agenda overriding everything else. It is true of every election that we have seen in recent months. Now, I think that as a nation, we have to decide which is that agenda that we want. Certainly not an agenda which divides people. Certainly an agenda which looks towards sort of lifting people up from the bottom of the pyramid. That's the only agenda that will make India survive. So that's one issue which I think is irreconcilable. Now let me talk about another very significant issue, and also it deals with the Indian economy to some extent. I talked about the global economy. Well, let me talk about the Indian economy. 56% of our GDP comes from services. 56%. And around 23-24% of our GDP comes from the manufacturing sector, and about 18-19% comes from agriculture. But agriculture sustains 60% of our population. And the contribution of 56% of our GDP comes from about 3 to 4% of our population. So 3 to 4% of our population produces maximum wealth, and the majority of our population produces no wealth. That's the reality of India. That's why there is jobless growth. Because the services sector absorbs technology. Now, how do you deal with this? Unless you give encouragement to manufacturing and create jobs, you're not going to create wealth in this country where it is needed. Wealth is needed at the bottom of the pyramid. In 2017, the gap between the 1% rich people and 99% increased. 1% of rich people acquired 55% of the growth of wealth in this country, which was a year ago 45%. In other words, the gap between the rich and the poor is increasing. And you probably know that about 800 million people in this country earn less than 10,000 rupees a month. Imagine this, 800 million people means the population of Europe and the United States of America put together is 800 million, and they earn less than 10,000 rupees a month. Now that's a contradiction which has to be reconciled. We can't afford that to continue. And how do we reconcile it? Till we have systems in place which encourages manufacturing. Remember, we had the agricultural revolution, the green revolution, and then we jumped into the services revolution. We had no industrial revolution like Europe had. Now, that manufacturing revolution was possible in China because of a totalitarian regime. And because land is a commodity that is owned by the state, it's not privately owned. So what the Chinese did was they gave land free to business enterprises. And they gave the infrastructure free, and they said, you come and manufacture here and export as much as you like. So they built up an export economy which built up their reserves. And they put those reserves into development, and that's how they developed. But we can't do that. We don't have a totalitarian state. So we need to develop a new economic model to ensure that people have jobs. But it's difficult for people to get jobs because we can't afford to have technology in the leather sector and the textile sector to the extent that we wish to, because there we will lose jobs. So what do we do? And that's again a conundrum that we face. How do we manage that? Now that requires thinking. But what thinking have we seen in the last 4 years? We talk about digital India. But what is digital India? I was thinking about education. Now, there are huge contradictions in education as well. Because the real problem with education in India is we don't have teachers. That's really the link that's missing is teachers. Why don't we have teachers? Because we don't have enough professionally set up institutions to train teachers. Why is that? Because nobody is interested in setting up institutions to train teachers because there's no return on capital. And state doesn't have the money to invest. So the result is there are no teachers. You go to any school, you will find 90 students, one teacher. You will find absentee teachers. And no urban teacher is in the urban sector of the economy wants to go to the rural area, just as doctors don't. So the result is you don't have teachers, good teachers. So the only way to deal with that issue is to have digital India. In other words, if you were to connect classes throughout the country with a digital network, you could have a teacher located in Delhi give a lesson to all our students across India, provided you're connected. In other words, you can solve the problem of absentee teachers through connectivity. And that's why I started my Akash project. That if we were to connect all our children through the Akash tablet, we could actually, through the digital network, give lessons to students even though there are no teachers there. That's a stopgap arrangement till we develop human resource. Now that's a contradiction that can be managed. But nobody wants to manage it because nobody has that sort of thought processes, that mindset. People are more interested in sending people to universities and have the ABVP sort of capture the university system than look at education. So digital India is not going to deliver at all. It will deliver to banks. It will deliver to big business enterprises because they love digital India. Because their transactions are quicker. For every transaction, they earn a commission. So for every transaction they earn a commission, the banks love it. Big businesses love it. Foreign companies love it. But a person who earns less than 10,000 rupees a month, what does he know about digital India and how does he need digital India? He doesn't have enough. You may have a Jan Dhan account, but he doesn't operate the account because he has no surplus capital. You need to operate an account if you've got money. But if you earn 10,000 rupees a month, what are you going to keep in the bank? So if you don't have anything in the bank, you don't need digital India. So 75% of our population, 80% of the population doesn't need digital India. They don't need smart cities either. What is a smart city? 40% of every urban city is full of pestilence. How do you deal with that? You have no garbage disposal system. How do you deal with that? These are contradictions of your Swachh Bharat. How do you manage that? You don't have a sewage disposal system, you don't have a garbage disposal system in any city and you talk about Swachh Bharat. Now, these are contradictions that have to be managed. And they have to be managed by persons with a vision. Now, our democracy is like a car. Think of a car. Each of you have a car. Your constitution is the car. And the four pillars of your constitution, the legislature, the executive, the judiciary, and the media, are the four wheels of the car. But they're not properly aligned. The mechanic will tell you if your wheels are not aligned, it won't work. Your car will not run. So at the moment, the four wheels of that constitution are not aligned, of democracy are not aligned. And you have a driver who doesn't know how to drive. That's the greatest tragedy of India. And that's a contradiction in itself. But you make a driver sit in a car and he doesn't know how to drive, you land yourself after 4 years where we are landed today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for that enlightening, words of wisdom. And I'm sure that the silence in the room almost tells us how seriously people were listening to you. You talked about multiple issues, right, from population being in decline to the revolution in robotics and artificial intelligence. It's almost like the work 4.0, the new industrial revolution is on us. But there is that contradiction that having that as per the global agenda is brilliant, but does it marry with the Indian agenda? And probably the answer is not. What do we do about it? How do we create jobs there? Joblessness is an important agenda that I think you talked about. And you also talked about the importance of business models. And the global business models and the Indian business models don't really match. They don't really gel. So we can't really go and say that, look at Germany, this is what they're doing, let's do that. Look at the United States, this is what they're doing, let's do that. Because that is not going to work in a country like India. You talked about, the paternalistic culture and how we need to change that. And what is the essence of the system, right, from the Supreme Court to the Constitution? You talked about the contradictions today that the democracy faces between Hindutva and the development agenda, the encounters, the language of the political leaders today that we encounter today. You talked about, how the divisive agenda is overriding everything and leading to a jobless growth today. And finally, you said democracy is like a car. And it's interesting you used that analogy because in the morning, somebody used the analogy that democracy is almost like an elephant with 5 blind men feeling different legs and talking about and saying different things. So probably the two reverberate to me. Thank you so much for a brilliant agenda and for a brilliant discussion. Can I please open the floor now for questions and answers? And we are happy. So we have time for questions? Boss, with your permission? We have time for question and answers? Yeah. So we'll take maybe 4, 5 questions, 6 questions in totality. So we have a big group of students here. We have from across, we have political researchers, lawyers, everybody, friends from the media, anybody. Yeah, so we have a first question there. And can I ask you to please, apne questions sirf future of democracy pe puche, politics or rajniti pe questions na aaye. Can we have the question, please?
Hello. Good evening, sir. Sir, I'm a lawyer practicing at this High Court. Sir, I've always been admiring you. It has been so good hearing you. Sir, since you started with the master of the roster, I would come up directly to that the impeachment motion which was moved, in that there was a charge number 4, which was with respect to a land grabbing, in which a false affidavit was being given by the current Chief Justice of India.
I don't think that we should go into these issues. This is nothing to do with master of the roster. Let's not make public issues that are pending in court. Ask a question in the context of the talk that I have given.
Okay, that's fine. We'll take another one. Yes, the students here. Shoaib, here. Yeah. And then there's a lady at the back. Yeah, Manisha ji here.
Mr. Sibal, you spoke about contradictions in democracy. I wanted to ask you about a little bit of a contradiction that seems to be coming out within the grand old party, the main opposition party of India. It seems that there is an ideological deficit that is brewing within the party, and without an ideological standing, which doesn't just pay lip service to Nehru, but also reinvokes his philosophy, and not just Nehru's philosophy, but also that of Gokhale and Rajaji and Gandhi, there seems to be no alternative to the Hindutva philosophy. So I would like to ask that when is there going to be an upsurge of this ideological battle being taken seriously by the Congress party and really introspecting and coming up with measures to counter Hindutva?
See, first of all, this is not, the question that you've asked is nothing to do with the contradictions within the Congress party. The question that you're asking is, how does Congress party reinvent itself? That's the question that you're asking. Lady at the back. It's not the same thing. There's no question of contradiction there. The talk is on contradictions. The talk is not on what we are going to do in the next 1 year to rejuvenate ourselves. And there the issue is that we have to give an agenda to the people which is constructive. So far, we have seen in this country in the last 4 years a destructive agenda. I think that what we need to do is place before this country a constructive agenda. As I told you, what we are going to do about education. How do we deal with health issues? How do we deal with job creation? What do we do with agriculture? How do you bring prosperity to the agricultural community? For example, about 70% of our agriculturalists are marginal farmers. About 70% own less than 2 hectares of land. And of that, a majority of them, another 80% own less than 1 hectare of land. So the land holdings are getting smaller and smaller, and there is surplus labor in agriculture which is not getting absorbed in the manufacturing sector. How do we then make this transition? So I think the challenge for the Congress is to give that constructive agenda to the nation, and that's what we are committed to do, instead of the destructive agenda that we've seen in the last 4 years.
Thank you for your speech, sir. So I agree with you when you say that there is a difference between the constructive and the destructive agenda, and how the destructive agenda does not help with development. But what do you make of the contradiction that the destructive agenda is still winning? I mean,
Is still winning.
Winning, yeah. I mean, it won in the state last year.
In life, everything that goes up comes down. It's law of nature, right? And I think that they've been given a 5-year period, and we'll see what happens in 2019. If sensible people like you make sure that they don't win, they won't win.
सिब्बल सर अभी आपने शिक्षा में सुधार की बात
Yeah.
देश की
Your mic is working. Please use the mic. Everybody can hear that.
सर अभी आपने शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में सुधार की बात की. देश की जनता ने 10 साल आपको भी मौका दिया, आप भी एमएचआरडी मिनिस्टर बने. आपने क्या प्रयास किए ये हम जानना चाहते हैं.
मैं अभी आपको एक ही आंकड़ा देता हूं, आपको पता चल जाएगा. मैंने अभी अपने भाषण में कहा था कि जब मैं मंत्री बना 2009 में एचआरडी का, तो उस समय जो ग्रोस एनरोलमेंट रेशियो थी वो 12.4 थी. तो मैंने समझा कि अगर डेवलपमेंट देशों में 55% है और ग्लोबल एवरेज 27% है, तो किस तरह से इसको आगे बढ़ाया जाए. इस संदर्भ में हमने राइट टू एजुकेशन एक्ट बनाया. राइट टू एजुकेशन एक्ट का नतीजा ये हुआ कि अब 100% बच्चे स्कूल जाते हैं. 100% बच्चे. उसका नतीजा ये हुआ कि जो 6वीं क्लास 8वीं क्लास के आगे भी बच्चे बढ़ गए हैं. तो आज जो ग्रोस एनरोलमेंट रेशियो है, मैं गर्व से कह सकता हूं, वो आज 24% तक पहुंच चुकी है. मैंने CCE, दैट इज कंटिन्यूअस कॉम्प्रिहेंसिव इवैल्यूएशन का निर्णय लिया, ताकि बच्चा केवल इम्तिहान देकर उसको, होता क्या है बच्चों में अक्सर क्या होता है कि पेरेंट्स प्रभाव डालते हैं बच्चे पे कि बेटे तुझे 90% लाने हैं, 95% लाने हैं. नंबरों से बच्चा आगे नहीं बढ़ता. बच्चे की सोच क्या है, उसकी आकांक्षाएं क्या है, उसके सपने क्या है, किस सब्जेक्ट में वो ठीक है, किस सब्जेक्ट में खराब है, अध्यापक को वो देखना चाहिए. और जिस बच्चे के जिस स्ट्रेंथ्स हैं उसके बारे में उसको बढ़ावा देना चाहिए. तो इसलिए मैं CCE लाया था, इन्होंने रद्द कर दिया. मैंने आकाश टैबलेट लाने की जरूरत समझी थी, जो मैंने आपको बताया भाषण में भी कि किस लिए आकाश टैबलेट में लाना चाहता, वो इन्होंने रद्द कर दिया. तो हमने तो अपने तरफ से प्रयास किया था, लेकिन दे हैव गॉन बैक इनटू द 19th सेंचुरी. अब हम कुछ कर नहीं सकते. अब 2019 के बाद आपके साथ करेंगे.
Professor Manish, please.
About your allegory, your speech referred to the driver, and everybody in the audience actually believes, by and large, कि driver थोड़ा सिरफिरा है. So do you believe that the future is a driverless car, the Tesla model, or is the future many drivers, especially from regional locations of India? What is the preferred model for the future? Is it a contradiction or is it a
Actually, the present government wants a driverless car. because they are also moving into technology in a big way. But you know, as the drivers of cars recently in California have had very big accidents. So I don't really support that. But on a lighter note, I think that if people sitting at the back of the car know what the driver is doing, and the driver sitting in front of the car know what the people at the bank know, that people at the bank want the nation to go somewhere, and they work together, that's the car I want and that's the driver I want.
Professor Ali, please.
बहुत शुक्रिया आपकी तकरीर का। मैं एक बहुत बुनियादी सा सवाल आपसे इसलिए पूछना चाहता हूं क्योंकि आप वकील भी हैं और राजनीति में भी रहे हैं कि बुनियादी तौर पर ये किसानों का मुल्क है, और आपने एक बात जो कही मैन्युफैक्चरिंग की कि उसके ज़रिए रोज़गार और नौकरियां बढ़ाई जा सकती हैं, लेकिन वो भी ऑटोमेट हो रहा है पूरा सेक्टर। तो ये ना कह के कि एग्रीकल्चरल ग्रीन रेवोल्यूशन था, क्या किस तरह से हम लोग एक एग्रीकल्चरल रेवोल्यूशन 2.0 ला सकते हैं, क्योंकि असल में जो बुनियाद है और जो रूह इस मुल्क की है वो खेती है, और आगे चल के दुनिया को भी उसी की ज़रूरत है। प्रोडक्ट्स चाइना की जो क़ुव्वत है वो है, लेकिन हमारे पास एक जो सरमाया है जिसका हम बिल्कुल तवज्जो उस पर नहीं करते हैं, बल्कि उन लोगों के वोट से किसी और की जेब में पैसा डालते हैं। तो एक तरह से किस तरह से हम सोच सकते हैं कि एग्रीकल्चर में एक फिर से इनकलाब आया जाए?
नहीं, बिल्कुल सही बात आपने की। देखिए, प्रॉब्लम एग्रीकल्चर की ये है कि क्योंकि लैंड सीलिंग लॉज की वजह से फ्रैगमेंटेशन हो गया एग्रीकल्चरल होल्डिंग्स का, जो मार्जिनल फार्मर है वो मार्जिनली रहा है। उसके पास ना तो कैपिटल इनपुट है, ना पैसा है लगाने का, ना उसके पास टेक्नोलॉजी है, और जो टेक्नोलॉजी बाहर से आती है उसका भी विरोध होता है। और जो चाइना की एग्रीकल्चरल प्रोडक्टिविटी है वो हमसे कहीं ज्यादा है, 2.5 गुना है हमसे, और लैंड भी उनके पास कम है, जमीन भी कम है। तो हमें पहली बात तो यह है प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ानी होगी। अब पूरा प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाने के लिए हम मार्जिनल फार्मिंग को किसी कोऑपरेटिव सिस्टम के नीचे लाना पड़ेगा हमें, ताकि जो कैपिटल इनपुट्स हैं वो कोऑपरेटिव द्वारा दी जाए, या बैंकिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर द्वारा उनको कैपिटल इनपुट्स दी जाए और टेक्नोलॉजी भी उनको दी जाए। तो जब तक इस सोच के साथ हम आगे नहीं बढ़ेंगे, वो प्रोडक्टिविटी नहीं बढ़ेगी। अगर प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ी तो किसान के हाथ सरप्लस कैपिटल होगा। सरप्लस कैपिटल के साथ किसान बहुत कुछ कर सकता है, और साथ साथ में एग्रो बेस्ड इंडस्ट्रीज को अगर हम लगाना शुरू करें तो वहां जो पॉपुलेशन है एग्रीकल्चर की, जो एक्सेस पॉपुलेशन है, वो एग्रो बेस्ड इंडस्ट्रीज में एब्जॉर्ब हो सकती है। और साथ साथ में जब तक हम एजुकेशन में सुधार नहीं लाएंगे, देखिए एजुकेशन हैज टू बी लिंक्ड टू एम्प्लॉयमेंट, और वो चीज हम नहीं कर रहे। हमने व्हेन आई वाज एजुकेशन मिनिस्टर आई ट्राइड टू डू दैट। एक तो आपकी नॉर्मल डिग्री सीबीएसई की है, लेकिन आपको एक सीबीएसई टेक्निकल डिग्री भी देनी पड़ेगी, जहां बच्चा सीधे सीबीएसई के द्वारा सीधा काम कर सके, क्योंकि हर एक बच्चा यूनिवर्सिटी में नहीं जाना चाहता और जाने की जरूरत भी नहीं होती। तो ये भी अगर हम रूरल एरियाज में, देखिए मैं आपको उदाहरण देता हूं कि एक इंडस्ट्री रूरल एरिया में लगी हुई है, उस इंडस्ट्री में 200 लोग काम करते हैं, उसके इर्द गिर्द गांव है। तो गांव के बच्चे, वो इंडस्ट्री को ये अनुमति देनी चाहिए कि आप एक टेक्निकल एजुकेशन सिस्टम इंस्टीट्यूट खोल लीजिए अपनी इंडस्ट्री के लिए, और उसमें अब आपको टैक्स का 5 साल का हॉलिडे देंगे, और वही जो गांव के बच्चे हैं उसी को आप टेक्नीशियन बनाकर उसी इंडस्ट्री में एब्जॉर्ब कीजिए। तो मैं एक उदाहरण के तौर पे आपको एक, और ये ऐसा अमेरिका में हो रहा है और ऐसा बाकी जगह में हो रहा है, लेकिन हम इस पे तवज्जो कर ही नहीं रहे। तो ये एक मेरा छोटा सा सुझाव।
We have a last question from Mukulikar, please.
Just a follow-up question to the previous one. I don't understand why you are inventing an agricultural policy on the hoof when the first UPA government, straight away Prime Minister Manmohan Singh set up a review of agriculture, right? Precisely to respond to this. There was a group of experts led by M.S. Swaminathan, the premier agricultural economist. A report was tabled in 2007. A very clear set of recommendations was made in 2007. 11 years later, of which a majority of it, your government was in power. Why not simply implement the recommendations of the M.S. Swaminathan report?
I think the Swaminathan report looks at only productivity in agriculture. I think we need to connect that productivity and connect the future of the agriculture and the family of the agriculturalist to the rest of the economy. And I think we need to do that, and I don't think enough thought has been given to that. And I'm not inventing something. This is something that I've seen around the world that has worked. We have systems in place around the world where educational institutions are connected to industry in the place where the industry is located.
Okay,
and degrees are given so that the industry can be absorbed in the area where the industry exists, and people don't have to travel to big towns and then get work in big towns. That stops also the flow of population from the rural to the urban areas, and at the same time allows the population to look after their families in the rural areas themselves.
Okay, Dhanush, absolutely the very last. We don't really have time.
I'm asking this question for the second time in this forum, and this question is really not mine. Question was asked to me by a child in my daughter's school who's between 16 and 18. And when I asked the question earlier, I almost actually didn't get an answer. I got a pushback. So I hope I'll get an answer from you. And that was, and the question is, the future is children, and there's so many youngsters who are so much more aware. Should the voting age come down to 16 instead of 18?
I don't think so. I don't think it should come down from 18 to 16, and I'll give you the reason why. I think you can then say if it's 16, why not 14? And I think at some stage we have to take a call. You have to take a call. I think that if the age for voting is 18, then certainly that's the age when people are fully aware of their environment. 16, I think, is a bit young. I think. It's possible that there is a 16-year-old who thinks better than an 18-year-old. And that's true. But exceptions won't make the rule. By and large, 18 is a good age for the right to vote.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And can I request Shavendra to please present a bouquet to sir? And can I request Ghanshyam to please present a memento to sir? As a token of thank you so much, sir, for your generous time that you have given us.